I should have walked away the first time she looked at me like that, steady, unreadable, almost amused. But something in her gaze held me still, as if she already knew the kind of trouble I was capable of, or the kind I wanted from her. She stood by the window of the quiet community hall, the late evening light turning the edges of her hair gold. Everyone else had already left after the meeting, chairs stacked, floor echoing with that hollow end-of-the-night quiet. She was the last to pack her things. I was the last to pretend I had something else to do. Her name was Mara, mid-40s, graceful in a way that wasn't delicate but controlled, a woman who didn't rush her movements or her words. I'd noticed that from the first day. She spoke like every sentence deserved space. Me? I was not like that. Early 20s, talking too fast when I shouldn't, too aware of my hands, and even more aware of hers. She closed her folder and looked up. "You're still here." I shrugged. "So are you." There was a small pause, not awkward, just careful. She seemed to weigh the air between us, as if deciding whether to close it or widen it. I couldn't tell which one I wanted her to choose. Her eyes flicked down to my hands when I reached for one of the stray pins on the table. She didn't say anything, but the corner of her mouth moved, the kind of almost smile that feels like it's directed more toward a thought than a person. "You don't have to help," she said, gathering the last papers. "I know. You usually leave first. I know." Her fingers brushed mine when she tried to slide the pen out of my hand. Not intentionally, not fully, but enough to make the moment slow down. Her touch was warm, but her posture didn't change. Mine did. I felt myself straighten, breath catching halfway. She noticed. Of course she noticed. She looked at me a second too long, then drew her hand back with a soft inhale. "You're different today." "Different how?" "I'm not sure." Her voice had that low, thoughtful tone again. But I can tell when someone has something they're not saying. I swallowed. My throat felt dry even though the room was cool. "Do you want me to say it?" Her eyes lifted to mine, direct, steady, almost challenging. But beneath it, something softer flickered. Something she didn't want me to see, or didn't know she was showing. She tilted her head slightly. "That depends on what it is." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because saying it would change the air between us into something neither of us could laugh off later. She stepped closer. Not much, just a shift of weight, but it brought her within the faint scent of jasmine and something warm, like her skin had been holding the day's sun. My pulse stumbled. "You're staring," she said quietly. "You're letting me." I replied before I could think. Her breath caught, the smallest sound, but real. Human. Not the polished confidence she wore so easily. "That," she murmured, "is exactly why you're a bad idea." And yet, I didn't finish. She didn't finish her next sentence either. Our silences kept brushing against each other harder than our hands ever had. A door banged open at the far end of the hall, sudden, loud, breaking the spell. We both turned sharply. Footsteps echoed toward us. She stepped back first, but her eyes didn't leave mine. Not immediately, not until she had to. And whatever she didn't say in that breathless second stayed burning in the space between us. The footsteps faded down another hallway, never reaching us. But the moment had already slipped, like someone had opened a window and let the warm air escape. Still, something lingered. Something we couldn't pack away with the chairs or pretend wasn't there. Mara gathered her bag, but her hands paused longer than necessary on the strap. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the floor, jaw tight. That was how I knew I'd gotten closer to something she didn't want touched. "I shouldn't," she started, then shook her head. "Never mind." "You shouldn't what?" "Be here this late. Let you help. Let you," her voice thinned. "Let this get complicated." Her words were steady, but the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, too carefully, too slowly, gave her away. She was buying time. She didn't want to leave. Neither did I. "You act like I'm a problem," I said lightly. "You're not a problem." She hesitated, then added, quieter, "Just young." There it was. The obvious thing neither of us had dared say. She didn't look at me when she said it, but the tension in her shoulders told me she expected me to argue. "I'm not that young. 20-somethings always say that." I stepped closer, not touching her, just enough for her to feel the shift of air. And mid-40s isn't old. Her breath hitched, not dramatically, but enough that I noticed, because I'd started noticing everything about her. The way she inhaled before speaking. The faint crease by her mouth when she tried not to smile. the softness in her eyes that only appeared when she forgot to hide it. "It's not about age," she said, finally meeting my gaze. "It's about history." She never talked about herself, not really. But something in her expression loosened, like she'd been holding a door shut too long. "I was married once," she said. "Too long. Too lonely. I stayed even when I shouldn't have, because leaving felt like admitting I'd failed." I didn't speak. The room didn't either. After that, I promised myself I wouldn't make impulsive decisions again, especially ones people would talk about. Her eyes flicked over me, quickly, as if checking if I understood the implication. I did. "This," she gestured vaguely between us, "is the kind of thing people talk about." "Let them," I said, maybe too quickly. Her lips curved, but not in amusement, more like she was caught between being flattered and afraid of it. "You say that now," she murmured. "But attraction like this, it burns out fast. And then I'm the one who looks foolish." She moved past me, intending to leave, but her shoulder brushed mine. Not accidentally. Not fully intentional either. Her hand lifted, as if she was going to touch my arm, then hovered, then slowly lowered again. "Mara." She stopped, didn't turn. I stepped behind her, close enough that my voice reached her neck before it reached her ears. "I don't think you look foolish." Her breath softened, almost a sigh. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then her fingers, just the tips, touched my wrist. Barely there, but undeniably real. A quiet, dangerous promise. She didn't look at me when she whispered, "You're making this harder." But she didn't let go either. Her fingers on my wrist should have been nothing. A light touch, barely a moment. But it felt like the whole room shifted around it. She realized it too. I saw the exact second she remembered herself, the way her shoulders tensed, the breath she pulled tight into her chest. "Mara, don't," she whispered, though she still hadn't let go. A soft vibration buzzed from her bag, a phone call. The sound cut straight between us. She jerked back half a step, hands slipping away from mine as if the phone had caught her doing something she shouldn't. She dug for the device, but her fingers fumbled the zipper twice. I didn't move. I just watched her struggle with something that wasn't the bag at all. Finally, she answered. "Hello." Her voice sharpened, formal, almost too steady. Whoever was on the other end had no idea they'd interrupted something fragile, something we barely understood ourselves. She nodded mechanically, murmured a few short replies, then hung up. "A friend," she said before I could ask. "She's on her way to pick something up." The message hung there. Someone could walk in at any moment. Someone who wasn't supposed to see us standing this close. We both felt the danger. Neither of us stepped away. Mara watched the door for a long second, then looked back at me, not at my eyes, but at my mouth. Quickly, she looked away again, pretending she hadn't. "You should probably go," she said, though her feet didn't move. "So should you." "I will." When she exhaled, one soft, helpless sound. "In a minute." The space between us tightened again. I don't know who moved first. Maybe we both did. Maybe neither of us did. Maybe gravity made the decision for us. Either way, suddenly she was inches away, close enough that I caught the faint scent of her perfume, jasmine, warm and unsteady. "People will talk," she murmured, barely above a breath. "Let them. You don't understand what that means for me." "Then explain it," I whispered. Her eyes lifted to mine, slowly, as if pulled. Her hands curled at her sides, like she wanted to touch me but didn't trust herself if she did. Her voice, when it came, was thin around the edges. "You make me forget to be careful," she said. My heart thudded once, painfully. "I'm not trying to." "I know," she said. "That's the problem." We stood there, breathing the same warm air, the silence thick enough to trip over. Her gaze drifted again toward my lips. A tiny, helpless movement she probably didn't even feel herself make. I felt it like a spark. "If you come any closer," she warned softly, "I won't be able to stop." "I'm already close." Her eyes fluttered shut for half a second, a surrender, a refusal, both tangled together. When she opened them, something unguarded flickered there. The door handle rattled. She startled, stepping back so fast her shoulder bumped the table. My hand moved instinctively to steady her, fingers brushing the warm skin of her arm, then staying there because she didn't push them away. "We shouldn't," she whispered. But her hand slid up my forearm, holding on. The door didn't open. Whoever was outside must have walked on. Mara swallowed, breath shaky, and didn't let go. We're running out of excuses, she said quietly. Maybe she was right, but she still didn't step away. For a long moment, neither of us breathed. Her hand on my arm felt different now, no longer accidental, no longer a slip of boundaries. She was holding on because she didn't trust her legs, or her resolve, or maybe both. Mara, I said quietly, leaning closer without meaning to. Tell me to stop. She didn't. Not right away. Her eyes moved over my face as if searching for something. Hesitation, immaturity, a sign she could use to pull away. But her hand only tightened slightly, a small, involuntary tremor giving her away. This, whatever this is, her voice barely found its shape. It's going to hurt someone. Who? Me, she whispered. The honesty hit harder than anything else she'd said. I stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, giving her every chance to move. She didn't. You think I want to hurt you? I asked. No, she breathed. That's what makes it worse. Her confession cracked something open between us. The room wasn't quiet anymore. It felt charged, thick with the kind of electricity you can't stand still in. I reached up, hesitating, then brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. My fingers skimmed her skin, warm, softer than I expected. She inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. You shouldn't touch me like that, she said, voice trembling at the edges. You didn't stop me. Her lips parted in a small, shaky exhale. I can't think straight when you're this close. Good, I whispered. She shut her eyes for a moment, as if steadying herself, then opened them again, full of something she'd tried to bury for weeks. You're too young, she said, but it sounded more like a fear than a fact. And you're too scared, I replied, softer than I meant to. She swallowed, eyes flicking between mine. Maybe I should be. Why? Because you look at me, she said, voice catching, like no one has looked at me in years. That broke her composure more than anything else. She stepped back, but only half a step, pacing once as though trying to outrun the truth she'd just said aloud. Her breathing wasn't steady anymore. You don't understand what it's like, she murmured. Being seen again. Being wanted when I wasn't expecting it. By someone who. She cut herself off. Someone who what? Her silence was answer enough. I moved toward her, slow enough that she could stop me, but she didn't. When I reached her, I placed a hand on her waist. Gentle, careful, waiting. Her body tensed, then softened, almost leaning into the touch. Her forehead pressed lightly to my chest. Just a moment. A tiny surrender she probably didn't realize she'd allowed. My hand came up instinctively to steady her, fingers brushing the back of her neck. She exhaled against my shirt, warm and uneven. This is wrong, she whispered. Then tell me to leave. Her fingers curled into the fabric near my ribs. I can't. I dipped my head closer, my lips near the shell of her ear. Then what do you want? She lifted her face, slowly, eyes flicking to my mouth. I want, her voice faltered. I want something I shouldn't. Our lips hovered, too close, not touching, breath mixing in a fragile space that could break with a single heartbeat. And right as we leaned in, the door handle turned again. This time, it didn't stop. The door swung open before either of us could move. Mara jerked away from me so fast her breath caught in her throat. My hands dropped to my sides. Her eyes widened with a panic that wasn't loud, but sharp and unmistakable. A woman stepped into the room, mid-30s, familiar enough to make my stomach drop. Mara's friend, the one who'd called earlier. Oh, she said, slowing to a stop. I didn't realize you were still here. Her gaze moved from Mara to me, then to the tiny, incriminating space between us. It wasn't what she saw. It was what she heard. Our ragged breaths, the tension still crackling in the air, the way Mara's hand shook as she reached for her bag. I was just finishing up, Mara said too quickly. Her friend raised an eyebrow. Right. Mara tried to walk past her, but the woman caught her arm. Not hard, just enough to stop her in place. Did you two argue? She asked gently, eyes lingering on Mara's flushed cheeks. She thought we'd fought. That should have relieved me. It didn't, because Mara didn't correct her. And that silence hit me harder than anything. Her friend's gaze sharpened. Mara, are you okay? I'm fine, Mara whispered, but her voice cracked. Her friend didn't push further, but she didn't stop watching us either. The weight of her stare made the room feel suddenly smaller, hotter. The unspoken truth hung between all three of us. I stepped back, instinctively, my body giving away what I didn't say. Mara didn't look at me. Not even once. Her friend finally exhaled. I'll wait outside. Come when you're ready. The door shut, and that's when the real twist hit. Mara turned to me, eyes bright with something raw. Fear, longing, guilt all tangled into one fast breath. She knows, she whispered. She only guessed, I said. No, her voice broke. She's known. She asked me 2 weeks ago if there was something between us. My heart clenched. And what did you tell her? I said no, she said. I said you were just kind. That I wasn't. She stopped herself, throat tightening. That I wasn't someone you'd notice. The air cracked. I stepped forward. Why would you say that? Because it was supposed to be true, she said, voice trembling. Because I was trying to protect myself. Protect both of us. Her hands trembled as she brushed past me, trying to gather her things, but her fingers slipped, knocking them to the floor. I crouched to help, our hands colliding, warm, tense, charged. She froze. I'm not supposed to want this, she whispered. And I told everyone I didn't. Do you? My voice was low, unsteady. Her hand remained under mine, still, hot, caught. I heard you, I said. Just now. When she walked in. You didn't correct her. She flinched. Because if I'd opened my mouth, I would have said something I can't take back. I rose slowly, bringing her up with me, our hands still tangled. What would you have said? Her breath hitched, her body leaning almost imperceptibly toward mine. That I feel something I have no right to feel. Her forehead touched my chest, just a faint, trembling contact she didn't authorize, but didn't stop either. Outside, her friend's footsteps shifted, waiting. Inside, Mara lifted her face to mine, eyes unguarded for the first time. I have to decide, she breathed, whether I walk out that door, or whether I stay and let this ruin every promise I made myself. And she didn't move. Mara didn't move. Not toward the door. Not toward me. She stayed suspended in that thin, aching space between choices, breath shallow, eyes caught on mine like she was steadying herself on something she shouldn't reach for. Her friend waited outside. The world waited outside. But in here, it was just us, standing too close to pretend distance meant anything anymore. Mara, I whispered, you don't have to be afraid of wanting something. She let out a shaky laugh, one that collapsed on itself. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. I stepped closer, barely, a fraction of an inch. Enough that her breath warmed my collarbone. Enough that she felt the choice approaching long before it reached her. You asked what you'd say, I murmured. If you hadn't stopped yourself. Her eyes fluttered. Don't. No, I said softly. For once, don't run from it. Her hands lifted, not to touch me, but to steady the air between us, palms hovering near my chest like she was holding back a wave. You don't understand, she whispered. I'm supposed to be the responsible one. I'm supposed to know better. And here I am, standing too close to you, breathing too fast, and wanting something that'll make everyone look at me like I've lost my mind. I reached for her wrist, slowly, visibly, giving her every millisecond to pull back. She didn't. Her pulse jumped beneath my fingertips. You haven't lost anything, I said. You found something. She inhaled sharply, a sound halfway between surrender and fear. What if this ruins me? What if it saves you? I countered. Her eyes locked onto mine then, really locked, with no shields, no practiced distance, no careful smiles. Just a woman who'd been lonely too long, aching for something she thought she no longer deserved. I'm tired, she breathed. Tired of pretending I don't feel this. My hand slid gently to her jaw, thumb brushing the soft line near her ear. Her eyes closed instantly, like she'd been waiting for that touch without letting herself imagine it. Mara, I whispered, my forehead lowering to hers. Then stop pretending. She trembled. Not a shiver. A full-body hesitation that tightened her breath and loosened her grip on every rule she'd been clinging to. Her voice broke. If I stay, I won't be strong enough to stop. I leaned in, close enough that my lips nearly brushed her cheek. Then don't stop. She exhaled, a quiet, helpless sound that gave her away. Her hands finally touched me, one flattening against my chest, the other curling lightly at my waist, as if testing the reality of me. No one's ever looked at me like you do, she whispered. No one's ever been you. That did it. Her body softened into mine. Not fully, not recklessly, but in a way that said the decision had already been made in some quiet place she'd been refusing to check. Slowly, she lifted her face. Our lips hovered, barely inches apart, breath mixing, hearts stumbling into the same frantic rhythm. Then very gently, she whispered the sentence that chose everything. Close the door. Not the outside one. The one between us. And this time, she didn't step back.